We're live, Carla.
We'll call this finance meeting to order at 7:02. And I guess, Taylor, we can start off with you because I know you asked for that money a couple weeks ago. We'll just start off with the postage.
Okay, you want me to start?
Yep.
So let us know if you can hear us okay, because we have added 2 more mics.
Oh, yeah.
Custom installation.
Maybe you should have Harry text and tell us if he can hear us. Or maybe he can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, and I'll fix the microphones tomorrow.
You should stay at home tomorrow, sir.
When I get back, I'll fix them. How's that?
The entire town just heard it. Stay at home tomorrow.
Yeah, for real. So the postage request is because we have several large, when I say we, I'll say it's not just my office, but several large mailings going out over the next 8 weeks. We have mailings, Becky has, I wrote down 500 for code. We have a huge mailing for the water plant. In the past, unfortunately, those mailings for the water plant go out a couple a quarter. So hopefully we don't have another, but that alone is over $1,000. And then I have a large mailing coming up, and possibly 2. So 1 to every water customer to start with the water abatement program and get people signed up. Of course, that is a revenue bearing, so that'll bring money back as we mail them. But 2, to encourage folks to sign up for paperless. So like every account signed up for paperless saves us like $50 a year each. So like we haven't had the time to put into stuff like that this year, but as the audit starts turning the corner and they feel, I'm gonna knock on wood, but they feel like they're starting to slow down for 2020. I'd like to put in a lot of time and effort into generating some efficiencies like that, where it really cost us a tiny bit up front and then saves us, for some customers, they live here their whole lives. So it really saves us for the duration of their stay in town. So I have wrote down 6,000 total. I can split that up amongst the different funds, or just put it in the auditor's office and split it 3 ways, general, water, sewer, or I don't really know if it matters. We're so close to the end at this point, we're just trying to get these mailings out.
And you said the general's doing good right now, right?
It is, and the general fund, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, it has improved.
General water sewer sounds good to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, I know Mayor's Court sends out probably 10 letters a week for tasks, people that don't show.
I think we're good with that thing.
Yeah, in the past, I think, this talking with some of the employees, it seemed like there was a hesitancy to mail. It was thought of as a savings if you don't mail, but for a lot of the activities we mail for, they're immediately revenue bearing. So yes, mail can be slow and cumbersome, but like I said, each water abatement account signed up is $30. So I gladly spend 50 cents to make $30. So anyway, I guess that's just me saying, the more things like Mayor's Court mail and collect, the better I see it.
Not those TTHM letters.
Well, that's different. That's one of them you guys will get. Those letters we get where we have to notify the customers of the TTHM. We've got like however many, 2,500 sitting over there.
Could we not attach that with send that with their water bill?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question for next time. I know that the letter that we sent this time had to be approved by the EPA before we mailed it out. So Jeff sent them a copy of it and they blessed it and then we sent it.
So if we time it, though, we might be able to just put the full bill and the letter in an envelope, and just for a little extra work, just send one.
Probably
Save
next time.
you 50 cents per
Yeah,
copy.
absolutely.
Right.
Is that something that we have on our website too? That TTHM letter?
I know we keep our water reports up there. I don't know the specific answer to that question. I can follow up, but I know we keep a lot of the other ones up there, so I would assume
But I
so.
think we have to actually notify them by mail.
By now, okay. I was gonna ask, the other thing is if they sign up electronically to receive their bill, can we deliver that electronically?
I don't know what the EPA rules are, but that's something we'll have to ask for sure. We have about 13% of our customers signed up for paperless.
Is that working now? Cause I used to be paperless and for some reason,
It should be. So we talked with Judy, I should say, talked with the software company 2 weeks ago now about why our paperless was sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. Meaning sometimes they printed and mailed, and they did some fix for us. And you know, even Robert said he was like, "There's a ton less bills here." I mean, he could tell 1 out of 10 bills were missing. So I think it's working now. It's one reason I'd really like to get that number up to 25-30% or higher.
I'll get hold of Robert tomorrow. Ask him to put my email back in and see if it takes it.
Already here.
So if you guys are good with that, the postage, the next thing I was gonna ask for was, I didn't add up all the invoices today, but for the new water project, this is another project where a ton of money goes out and a ton of money comes in reimbursing for it, to replace all the water meters in town. So we have a pretty large number of invoices coming in quick for that. So I was just gonna ask for 50,000 out of the water fund on top of the 16 you guys just approved. And that should carry us through New Year's, I would like to think. I'm on the back end of this stuff. So if an invoice comes in at 10,000, I think the next one will be 10 and the next one might be 65,000. So it's like, it's one of those things where it just comes real quick with these big projects, but they're OWDA money. So the check comes in to reimburse for them essentially.
That was 50.
Yeah.
How long would you say it's taken to get the money back? I mean,
OWDA is pretty quick, a couple weeks.
that's good.
It's the Ohio EMA, Emergency Management, that is really slow.
Now, do any of these, when they get appropriated, do they need to be put under suspension of rules?
Well, so these a lot of these will require it Monday or the 9th, I guess at this point, and there's other requests that are coming, but some of them we have to get done like the 10th, or that week. So
So
we're
we
gonna have,
suspend the rules in these.
yeah, on the appropriations ordinance for next time.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to jump into some of your stuff.
You got anything else?
Yeah, but I can trade off for a minute.
All right. So I got lots of things. The first one, let's do Harry's first. That way he can get off here and go back to bed. What I asked the other night for next year he wants to use $12,000 of his capital for the pagers that he was not, that we weren't successful getting the grant for this year. So I think you guys wanted to bring it here, so I'm not sure.
If we don't, what do you mean by 12,000 of his capital? What does that mean?
Capital improvement next year, in his budget for next year for capital improvement, it's like to utilize that. So it's not asking for the money this year.
Oh, I thought we needed another one.
Well,
So it takes a couple months, a month or two to get the program and everything else. So if we order them now, it'll have it for next year, so I guess a couple months.
yeah, 2 to 3 months lead time.
Yeah, you don't pay attention to them.
Yeah, you don't pay that. No, nobody wanted to go ahead and order them without council permission. So it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
As long as we're not required to pay for them this year.
No, we've confirmed that. So, Harry, you can jump in if I'm saying it incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure we have a solid 3 months before we can even start to report.
Yes, that is correct. They're 60 to 90 days out. Normally, anyways, on their billing. I talked with the gentleman that runs the company, and he assured me that we would be fine with taking care of the invoice after the first of the year when my budget was opened back up for 2021.
Hey, Harry, will it come with an annual agreement? Like, does a contract need signed?
There's no.
No, they don't transmit. They're just a pager, so there's no Marks user fee that we have to pay like the radios.
Okay.
One-time cost.
Yes, it's a one-time purchase.
I just want to make sure if it did, we would, and that
Yeah.
organization.
Personally, as far as next year's budget is concerned anyway, I prefer we don't have to approve every, appropriation. I think we should go back to allowing them to do it at a fund level, because every time we do this, anyway, like the 6,000, the 50,000, then Taylor signing off on that, and we have to send that down to Bill Thompson for signature and approval of that as well. So literally every council meeting then we're having those appropriations. I don't think we do that at this point, based on what has been happening in the city and how I think progressing, and then we have a higher transparency and that, so I'm not concerned about.
Well, I totally disagree. We think that because we had so much comments, the public wanted to know where the money went. That's what they wanted to know. And I know I trust Terry, and I know the city manager has to approve it. We're not necessarily here to do what we want. We're here to do what the people want, not what the city employees want, not what we want. We're here to serve the public, and they have asked over and over and over when I got my petition signed, and even now, where the money goes. And that was the whole reason of doing away with the one department that was just given money and did not have to come and ask for it. And we did away with that purposely because that's what the people wanted. And that was the whole point. It wasn't because for any other reason. That was just the whole point.
Well,
Transparency.
okay, so, I mean, regardless then, if it was, whatever reason it was done, I think the transparency in the city though is far greater than it ever have been
Oh, I agree with that.
since I've been involved in the city. So, I think it still could be a fund level decision on their part, because if say Harry doesn't have $12,000 in his capital, but he has $12,000 within his budget in a different line item, he wants to utilize that, he should be able to do that. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have to come through the normal channels though to get approval to be able to purchase that, and then notify, and Scott can do in his city manager report every council meeting, hey, this is what we've done. This is, this is what we've purchased lately, and this is how it's going to benefit the city. So I think we still have that capability of still being transparent without having to micromanage, if you will.
I know, that was Dan's whole word before, it was micromanaged, but we worked on this for 8 months
Oh.
last time. It was.
That's a real word.
That's
Well,
your word, that's your word that you love.
Council will have to vote on it as a whole anyway with the budget. I'm just giving my 2 cents because at the end of the day, I think we should put a line item, I've talked with, Tony about this for sure, I know that, but like, as far as what we put in, Harry's line item for capital improvement, we'll put a dollar amount in there and he spends as he needs it, sees fit for his department, with the oversight of our city manager, which is why we're hiring him in the first place. So I think that,
So you just want it to go back to the way it was.
Well.
And then the whole thing that started that
Well-
was, our previous city manager said, if one department just gets money, then all the departments should be equal.
I disagree on being equal. All I'm saying
I
is
don't
they
mean
should be
amount wise,
treated,
I just
yeah, I
meant
think
line,
they just,
item wise.
I think they should be treated fairly and separately. That's why our country even is set up as a federalist system, because Jason should know what he needs in his department. Harry should know what he needs in his department. Chief Fish should know what he needs in his department. And then you have the city manager who then has, can look over and say, okay, well, all right, well, that makes sense. You do have funds here, checks and balances. Taylor steps in, says, yep, okay, we do have checks and balances. So then all I'm saying is that, I'm not saying equal amount, I'm just saying give them a little bit more, leeway to be able to purchase the things that they necessarily need for their department to be able to run and operate efficiently.
Well, that's fine, I mean, you can take it to council, I don't agree with it, but.
No, I'm saying, it's gonna have to go before
I
council
wanted
when
to
we
go before
approve the
council
budget.
before, last time, it never did.
We're gonna have to
It
take it,
put in the budget.
No, it didn't go before council. Get rid of capital improvement, did not go before council.
Put the whole entire budget as a line item.
the whole budget will have to go before council to be
Right.
approved. And that's, when we will have the discussion on how we wanna do it.
I think if I could jump in too, I think one of the things that would be very helpful for me, for Scott, and for the department heads, and honestly, I think would be really helpful for council is if there was some more opportunity for us when we're just moving monies across department. So adding, say, for example, the one we just talked about, 50,000 for the water project, that's an additional money being set aside. So we're taking from the unappropriated balance and setting aside new money. That always has to come from council, but it's the stuff that's already been set aside. For example, Fitch's request we're gonna talk about later is moving some money from part-time salaries that he doesn't need because he hasn't been scheduling part-timers as much, or doesn't have as many, to some operating purchases he'd like to get done, which honestly should have been done 5 years ago. That money's already been set aside. There's a way where you can pass the budget on the fund level, like Corey says, where if the city manager, the department head, and the auditor sign off, we can just, well, that's a bad example, right? Because we can't move from payroll to operating. But let's say it was payroll from salaries to OPERS or whatever, the pension, and we needed to move that. Right now, we have to ask council just to make that internal move. But it would be nice to be able to just say, council, set this aside for the police department. But it's not apportioned exactly because we have 3,000 line items and we get it. Well, I mean, if we're being humble, right? We get it wrong sometimes. Some numbers are too high and some of them are too low, if that makes sense.
So I think as long as these purchases are put in the city manager's report, hey, so we did this, but at the end of the day, you're also telling the department heads, budget your money wisely, because this is it, this is what you get. So.
So you're saying give it to the police and the
fire.
utility also?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Because see, that never happened before.
I'm
It's
just-
just one
What,
part.
capital improvement money? I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that, okay, Taylor and Scott have been working on the budget and working with each department head on what they foresee they're going to need in the department head. They've been cleaning up their line items. So let's just say in the fire department, they have 9 line items within their budget. And, that's salary, wages, benefits, whatever, all those line items, capital improvements in his. Maybe police doesn't have a capital improvements, but they have 10 line items in there, okay? Gary has those line items and it says, well, here's how much money's in each one of those line items for the year. All I'm saying is that if he says, well, we need these pagers, and so say there's only $11,000 in there and they cost 12 in his capital improvement money, okay? If he's got $1,000 in another line item already within his budget, not under capital improvement, but it's under another line item, he can pull that money from that other $1,000 to be able to purchase the pagers without having to go through council appropriation of those funds to get that. That's all it is. So what happens is it's meaning at the fund level, it means that the fire department, level, not, they've got all their money there, not necessarily each line item do we have to say, well, we need $1,000 from here to do this.
Right, I understand what
So
you're saying.
that's all I'm saying is that right now Taylor is asking for $66,000 for postage that we're really appropriating from 3 different line items
Right.
to come up with $6,000. Instead of that saying, yeah, we're okay if you use $6,000 to renew the postage through the end of the year, and then he along with Scott deciding where the best place to take those funds from, without having us to actually do the legislation to make it happen. Does that make sense?
Wasn't that what used to happen though with the previous auditor, and we decided at the time that we didn't want it just moved around without knowing where it was going?
Yeah, so, it is and it isn't. It is we're debating these things without calling them by their name, really. It's different ways the state allows us to pass the budget, and they have names, and I forget their names, honestly. I think yes, I actually know, it's the line level, the fund level, and operating level, or something like that. So we passed it at the line level this year. It is true in the past, it was passed at the fund level.
Right.
But I think what the suggestion would be, and Scott and I have already said, there should be ways that first of all, the auditor was moving things and just moving them. And,
That's what we wanted
and
to wait
sometimes
for,
there
right?
was, it was favors and it shouldn't have been. But that's not what we want to suggest, and that's not what we want now. That's kind of why I said earlier, I'm suggesting a system where the department head, the city manager, and myself all have to sign off on it so that there's broad agreement, but also that in one of our reports, every change is reported on like an Excel sheet, looks like just like an expense report or whatever. All those changes are explained each month. And honestly, you don't even really see it until the last half of the year. So I would expect in like February, there really wouldn't be any changes. But now that we're at the end of the year, like with Chief Fitch, he's ambitious and dedicated professional. He's got all this stuff he knows he needs, and we've needed forever. And me and him spending hours and hours each week, as you guys can tell from the legislation, hours each week to figure out how can we make this happen in the current budget, when there is a way we could just say, council set aside whatever the number is, $876,000 for the police department, and it shouldn't be sitting somewhere where it can't be used. So in other words, if that line item, we're not using it because we didn't realize we weren't going to need it, why should that 5,000 sit there when we really need it for like a gun safe or all the different things PD needs?
And here's another reason why, is because, which I know that majority of the council has not been a fan of so many pieces of legislation coming through under suspension or under emergency. So, and especially during the COVID, I understand some of it because we weren't meeting as often, but, we've been meeting pretty regular. And so having all of these things come under suspension or emergency all the time now is because we're having to literally move, we need $6,000 postage by the end of the year. If we did that regular process now, we would be able to do that without suspension of the rules before the end of the year. So if we allow more at the fund level, then we don't have those concerns of constantly passing legislation on an emergency.
Unless it's additional. I mean,
Exactly, unless it has to be
additional money.
appropriated.
Yeah, additional money has to always be approved in any case.
Yeah.
But if it's just moving
But if
because,
it's already in the budget and it's in the line item that, are in the fund level, then.
So capital improvements usually for replacing gear or equipment that has over 5-year lifespan. So I was always in an agreement that they should all be fairly treated, because we get nickel and dime to death if we piecemeal it out, each individual thing out. So if you say to the department head, you have $20,000 in capital improvement, you budget your money well. Same way with police, whatever the amount is, same way with fire, whatever the amount is. Because, and this is just one point on that whole thing, like that one year we gave the police department almost $90,000. They got a cruiser plus, they got a bunch of equipment. And so there was a set of radios that was, probably $5,000 cheaper. And it was a Marks radio. It was a good radio, but it wasn't a Motorola. So you're paying for the name brand there. And I just felt that that's just foolish spending, because you're gonna come back later and say you want more money for this or that. I suggest you save your $5,000 because you might need it for something else. So I just think it makes them more accountable. Purchases go through the city manager. He can put those purchases in his report
utilizing the
speaking to the-
software to the fullest, if we're utilizing our software to the fullest extent anyway, there's no reason why we couldn't do a monthly expense report, you know, for every council meeting, you know, different than, you know, the report that the auditor provides currently, because that way you can see all the, you know, all the transactions that are going
Yeah,
on.
exactly. Just how that
So,
goes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's no reason why that can't happen. We've just never utilized that software near to its potential, so. And something.
All I want is to make sure that everybody knows where we're at.
I think we can maintain that, and I have a report that my system generates, that the treasurer just walked in, and he uses it to help balance, well, we both use it to balance the books now, but it's every single transaction, it's just called an account audit, and it's every single transaction for the city, and so there's that type of transparency, which is everything, and then there's things, like I said, if there was ever any changes amongst line items, if we moved 2,000 from operating to training because their training bill was $2,000 higher than we thought, which would be great because in the past we've never done training. We really need to do training. Then we would notate that on a report for that month or something like that. But I think it would make things a lot easier. I think when we are appropriating things like $800, like we've done recently, at a council meeting, it doesn't necessarily make us look bad. It is cumbersome. It's extremely cumbersome. But especially anyone with council experience in other cities, I think they would watch that and think, well, what's going on? What are we talking about $800 at a Monday council meeting for? When we did all the work for a $6 million budget at the beginning of the year. So I do think it would help. That's me personally. There's a lot of state protections already in place. You have to keep in the same category, so you can't switch between payroll and operating, and it's inappropriate, and the auditors call you out if you say the money was set aside for office supplies and you moved it to a snowplow expense. That's not really the same category, but office supply and maybe, you know, office furniture, I guess. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of stuff that are similar to each other if you move amongst those things, amongst similar things. Or say a vehicle purchase, but the police chief decides not to purchase the vehicle because he needs to upgrade and repair some. That's a similar category.
I like to see it in somebody's report though, and not just on a spreadsheet, but actually explain, so this month we had to move this or that. I don't think it needs to, per se, go through council for that kind of approval, but as long as
Just working back for
within the budget, and but I just want it to be said, okay, this month we moved this to here because we needed this or that. And that's not too hard to do, it's just,
Right.
But I don't think we need to do an appropriation or council, we don't need to get a micromanaging.
And just like last time when we moved some fuel money out of Harry's fuel budget to somewhere else.
Right.
That's something we could have done without legislation. or
True, but
something,
I would like to see it in a report actually read out.
Yeah, of
that
course.
way, instead of just saying, you know, putting it on a line item and then, well, we gave you a spreadsheet, there it was, line item. There's 50 million numbers on that damn little print, so. I would like to see it at least read out in a report that, hey, this month we moved this to here for this reason, and that way it's at least noted. Or, you know, police department bought a gun safe with their capital improvement money this month, or something like that. I mean, that way we don't get into micromanaging every little dime that we spend, although, but we're still stewards of the same amount.
Right. So like a perfect example is, we have a lot of money left over in paving projects. So this is my second item. And I just wanted to let you guys know, I'm planning on buying a hot box trailer with that. What that is, it holds 4 tons of asphalt and it keeps it hot. And that way the guys can get it down before it goes bad and move on. It's just one step closer to us being better at asphalt repairs and moving forward.
Do you have a price on a milling machine?
I did. The only hesitation I have with the milling machine is our Bobcat is old. So what I talked to Jason about is I want to find one to rent next summer to see if our Bobcat can even handle it. And if Bobcat can handle it, then look at it. I'd hate to buy a brand new one, because a decent new one is somewhere $17,000 range, and have that nice yard ornament that can't even be ran by our equipment.
And
So,
I think that'd be instrumental that way, because we cannot keep just paving over our streets.
completely agree.
How you can dig down a foot right now and hit like the very first road.
Totally
We
agree.
don't have any curves.
Would love to have a mill. In fact, several months ago, I was dead set on getting one. I didn't take into account that our equipment may not be able to handle it. So, because it requires high flow, and which is not standard
We
equipment,
might be able to get a grant
possibly,
for a new piece of equipment, like a new Bobcat or something too.
which would be really nice as well.
Well, on that subject, and I don't want to interrupt, but I don't want to forget either. Speaking of the paving, we need to make absolutely sure that Sonny to do some streets this year, because it's been 2 years. So I don't know where it's gonna come from, but
We
if
have
we
a
had
plan.
extra money in paving, and we said we couldn't do any streets.
Well, yeah, we can't pave these streets now. The whole city's.
I think you mean 2021.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, next year.
No,
in the budget.
we have some pretty radical changes. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I think you'll be okay with what we give you.
As long as there's some money in there for streets.
At least $2. Just kidding. No, there's plenty of money in there for streets.
The
I
plan
just,
that, if I could just say generally, Scott, the idea that Scott and I tripped into, which is probably not giving enough credit, but the idea we kind of fell into last week would give a lot more than we paved with a couple years ago when we did things like Pine Grove. It just involves being smart
So
with the
just
money.
totally out of the blue, do we have a plan B if the street levy and the census doesn't come through with funds?
pray.
Yeah.
Lots of praying. No, we don't.
No, I meant, do we have a
There's
plan
none.
B?
Yeah.
No, I mean, for any voters watching, I'm not saying this to scare tactic or campaign or anything, but the honest to God truth is that the street funds come from two sources mainly, the gas tax, the street levy. The gas tax is about 170,000. The street levy is 250,000. Without the street levy, name me a place that you can cut 60% of its revenue and keep open.
That's
There's
why I
not
was
a business in the
wondering if
world.
you had a plan B in the budget.
Right, I just mean that there's not a business in the world you could cut 60% and just keep open the next day. So that without the street levy, there would be major cuts.
Probably have to reduce manpower for certain.
Yep, it would be very hard. So we don't want to do that. Please vote for the street levy. There's my
Yes,
campaign.
please vote. And just so everybody out there knows why there wasn't more paving done, the reason why we held off and didn't spend the money we had for paving is it just doesn't make any sense to me to put asphalt on the ground if we don't know if there's a water leak underneath of it. So the company's coming into town, next month, in the next couple weeks. They haven't set the exact date, and what they do is they drive around a little golf cart buggy thing, and they have special equipment to listen for water leaks. And then we'll have a preliminary plan of where all of our leaks are. We can set up a plan to address those leaks, and then once the leaks are addressed, then talk about asphalt. So,
We call them the water whisperer.
yes.
No,
I'm here all week, folks.
no, don't encourage.
I think, yeah, so I'm in agreement with that. I've always been in agreement that we need to fix our infrastructure before we pave streets, because we can't just recklessly pave streets and then tear them up. And right now, our city's tore up with new gas lines, so hopefully that'll be finished soon, my God. And then we need to work on our own infrastructure and start paving streets, and then eventually we'll get done. Our infrastructure will be big, and the streets will be paved, so we just need to be a little more patient. We're not just ignoring it. It's something that needs to be planned out properly, so we're not laying down new asphalt and just cutting it right back up.
And I would just like to, since we're on that topic, and I'd just like to thank the folks in the community, because I know that people have been very patient and, but have also been very supportive of what, Scott and his team have been doing at the city. So I appreciate that. And I just appreciate everybody that's, really dove into this, and you guys have been coming up with some great ideas and plans that not only save us money, but also do right, for
two softballs. Here's an easy one. I would like to ask council to approve a $30 per month phone stipend for the managers currently. We have a handful of city cell phones and I'd like to get rid of those. So this would be a savings overall. So for example, I use my personal phone, which is fine, but so does Harry and so does Scott. Phil has a city phone. Jason has his own phone, and we have a couple other city phones that we've been able to round up and shut off just because they haven't been working. A $30 stipend doesn't cover the whole bill. It's about half the price of what we're paying for these phones, and it would just offset the cost a little bit for those folks who are using their phones.
What do you call that?
I call it a stipend, whatever. I don't. It's basically
Like an
$30.
allowance, cell phone allowance.
Oh, you can just say something.
Okay, cell phone allowance.
There you go.
Now, will that be, we can have that on their pay as like a separate line item? Okay, so it's not coming under salary and wage.
So, yeah, we currently don't have that, separate pay code, but if council were to approve it for all department heads, which I should, major disclaimer would not be me, because you can't change elected officials' pay. I don't want anyone at home to think that that's something that's happening right now. But for the department heads, if we were to do it, for 5 or 6 or however many employees, then it would make sense then to make a pay code so that it's easily discernible.
And that would go for code as well,
Sure.
because we always seem to forget to recognize her.
It's not about recognizing her. We love Becky.
Just saying, let's include her too. She uses her own phone as well. She actually takes pictures and downloads them.
Absolutely.
So Scott, I know you wasn't here and you wasn't here for it. Do you guys remember, there was a reason that people didn't want those
Because they're
phones
public
used at all. Do you remember why we didn't do that? Cause I don't remember.
But, yeah, it's a sunshine law.
As legend would have it, Mr. Varga lost his phone for quite some time while it was being looked through.
No, I mean, are they okay with using their phones? Cause I know they didn't want to before.
I haven't asked Harry, who's on board here now. I do know Jason would like to do that, and I know Phil would like to do that. And
Oh, I don't have a problem with it. I just know before that they
Yeah.
went away from that. They did not want to do that.
Yeah, I know some people just don't want to carry two
There
phones.
should probably be, Scott's talked about how there is, not talked about, he is on the docket a citywide training day. And for anyone who takes those, there should probably be like, would it be buy-in, like every other year, a training on using your phone for work and not doing things that, am I making sense? Like,
Yep.
that aren't appropriate, or
Inappropriate,
don't
yeah.
open you up to sunshine law problems and et cetera, et cetera.
I don't want to speak out of turn. I mean, I work for the state, and use my cell phone for work, and I've had all kinds of ethics training on this. And, for the most part, like, what's on your phone, this is my personal phone, I pay for it myself. But where you might come into problem, and I think, we can look this up easily for ethics law, is if you are getting a stipend, that's different. If you just are paying for it yourself, then it doesn't come under that.
Oh, good, do away with the cell phones and then we won't pay them anything.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, so I think that the way to do that is get an ethics, that's, not an official ethics, I can look it up, I've had training on this.
Yeah, you can ask for ethics opinions from the state.
Okay, yeah, but
I think it does. I mean, I'll be honest, I've had to take that training as well for 5 years now. And if I'm talking city council business with you or Scott, or it's all, or city council, city business, I would have meant to say, it's all.
yes, that's, if you're talking city business,
And I pay
not
for
your
my phone.
personal conversation. Like, you and I can have a personal
Right, right.
conversation, and that is not, like, they couldn't see that, like, that would have to be redacted in a thing.
Right. But I think the concern is that if they move city business conversations from their phone that we currently pay for to a phone that is theirs, then those city conversations are still going to be
That doesn't change.
right.
I'm just saying, like, it doesn't affect your personal conversations if the city, if you're using your personal phone for city business, does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm not
Like,
talking about
yeah.
personal.
So, can we find that answer and go from there?
Absolutely.
That way we make sure we're, you know,
We pay a couple bills now, and I look at the usage, and, you know, they don't hardly use them at all, and they don't have a personal phone. I mean, they have that for everything. And, as I talked to Phil today, he goes, you know, well, that'd be way better. I'll give you this phone back, which is due for an upgrade now anyway. He goes, and then I can just go out and get an Apple phone, and my daughter can take care of she can be my IT support, and life is grand for him. So, I just thought it was a good idea. It was something we talked about today, and we will save money. We have a Verizon bill and AT&T, and, I mean, just the user fee, $30 per person for 6, I believe, would be less than what we're paying for just those handful of lines now that we have, a couple lines.
How do we do the workers right now, with people, like the employees, the street crew, water crew?
So, have a Jason in there, any call outs, Jason gets rung. None of the guys wanted to carry the call out phone
Right,
anymore.
so how do they get notified? I mean, does
They
Jason
just call their cell phone.
go out and, do they call his personal, he calls their personal phone?
Absolutely, that's what they wanted to do. Any more on that one?
No, I don't have a problem. I just wanted to protect the workers if they, you know, didn't want it or something.
Oh, of course. This one should be pretty easy too. So we are at the closing stages of the first phase of the new sewer plant. And the infrastructure that's been installed, the new sewer over in Carbon Hill, Bookdale Road, and parts of Bookdale, down Borough Drive. And we're to the point now where folks can almost hook up to the lines. So with that, we have gone through and come up with a package that has all the instructions for how people hook up to the lines and so forth. What's important is that it is inspected by a licensed individual. So we partnered with Mr. Rex Fisk, our local electrician / plumber, and we've come to an agreement that is now coming to you. What we need is council's approval for the fees to inspect the connections of these existing houses into the sewer system. There's 2 different types of connections. There's one that's a gravity connection, which is super easy. That's $100. It is going to be the fee for Rex. And then I asked that we put the $25 standard administrative fee on top of that. Taylor's crew would collect that. And then the second fee would be for the electric grinder pump installation. And that would be $250 plus the $25. So the 100 and the 250 is what Rex gave us as actually a very cheap rate to go out and do that work, and he has the certification to do both.
So he'll actually do the work.
Not the work, he goes out and does the inspection and certifies it.
Can he inspect that under his license? Because you're kind of like state certifying,
What's residential?
but it's still a state thing.
Maybe
Even
that's
our,
county.
even county inspectors, we don't have a building department.
Right,
So even city or county inspectors are state certified.
so because it's people's residential, I mean, we can not even require an inspection. We're
Well,
not,
that's how we've been on a problem with other stuff.
right, we're not forced to have this inspection. This is,
this is something you're instituting,
as,
ensure that it's appropriate.
as recommended by Stantec. So, because there's specific piping requirements that go from the house into either the grinder pump or the gravity sewer. It specifies the type of pump, the type of slope. It has to hold air pressure, a certain percentage for a certain period, and nobody in the city has the ability to do any of that stuff. So he gave us what I thought was an extremely reasonable quote.
That's a reasonable quote.
And basically, we would charge that, and then the only other fee would be is if the folks failed the inspection and he had to go back out, they'd have to pay a second re-inspect fee. So,
Is there a re-admin fee on that also?
Probably should be. Cause all the money.
we didn't talk about that.
We didn't think of it, but yeah. the $25 is the admin fee, right? So we would just charge that again if we had to go through the process again. If council approved it.
Well, yeah, because you would have to go through it all over again, so.
Right.
Yeah, because you collect the fee.
Yeah, Rex's license, I mean, he knows state codes anyway, that's what he has to abide by, so, I mean, well,
He was instrumental, you know, God love our engineer, but he over-engineered the packet that he brought. And, we broke it down from, a book to a couple pages.
Yeah.
So it was really good discussion, and I think he's being, I think he's, what do you say? He said, don't call him cheap, call him very
I was
inexpensive.
gonna say that when you said cheap earlier.
Yeah, he's very inexpensive, not cheap, Rex, sorry. So,
And we had a little bit of a discussion just for council's awareness about what the best way to collect that was. Because different cities do it differently, and we all, I think, came to an agreement unanimously that it would be most comfortable if Rex billed the city for his inspection, when we paid him, and the residents, or the customer essentially paid the city.
correct, I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah, there was a couple other.
Because we're the ones requiring the fee.
Yep.
Not Rex.
Exactly.
So-
He's got another business. We don't want to mess with his, business. I mean, you know what I mean? Right.
So before he's even called out, they have to come in and basically apply or pay for
correct,
that, and then,
they coordinate with him,
then he would want to inspect.
absolutely. And then at the end of it,
So
we will have.
we're not gonna try and collect afterwards,
No, like before, and, he won't do the re-inspect till they pay.
so they pay again, correct?
Right, so, and then we're gonna run these through iWorks, so these permits will go through iWorks, and then to close the permits, he will collect photos from the contractors of the connections, and we will maintain the photos of the actual connection in our database, so we'll have a record of it.
We are, I hope, requiring license.
So if the packet requires license, or if it's a homeowner, they gotta go through a process of getting a license and permit to do so.
So essentially, somebody's licensed to do it themselves.
Well, they don't have to be if they're the homeowner. They have to go through the process of just doing it for the specs. That it's the way they have to do it, and then that's what Rex is there for, to ensure that it was done properly.
100% correct.
Didn't the packet say that if they're not licensed, they need to get one?
I think we took all that out. That's one of the pages that we struck from the package.
Sorry, we were in, it was like a 3-hour meeting.
Yeah,
I'm
so
still-
typically that's the case though, so it's no different if you wanna do, the work on your own home versus having someone come in and do it. You have the ability to do so, but then you still have it inspected, ensure that it was done properly.
Makes
It
sense.
is what it is, yeah.
And the letters, unless we change our mind, I don't think there's a reason to, but the letters that will notify these 50 or so homeowners will come with a pretty long list of licensed
Yeah,
folks in the area. So.
we're gonna give them both counties, because we got some in Hawkins, some in Athens, we get, both lists put together. I would ask that we, do this under suspension of the rules, so folks can start getting hooked up to it. Specifically, C&J Tax, C&J Tax, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but, we've been hauling their sewage for over a decade. So their sewage flows into a holding tank, and the city goes over, pumps it, and then takes it back to the plant and unloads it. And that is a massive expense to our operation, and these guys getting on the sewer will be a blessing.
They're only,
The sewer plant guys will probably do cartwheels.
So will this protect us then, the certification, will that protect us from like if something goes wrong,
That's the biggest
we
thing
did it
about,
right? I mean,
right,
so
so
what it actually does, it stops, because we've actually had this happen where people go and take a freaking sledgehammer, punch a hole in the clay pipe, stick another pipe in there, cover it up, call it a day.
and more so with the grinder pumps, Carla, so they're 240 volts, so they require skill to hook those up correctly, and the city's on the hook for those pumps, and they're not cheap. I think roughly $5,000 a piece, actually. So by these being certified and inspected by Rex before they get turned on, and he's there when the motor gets turned on, it protects the city.
I'd almost require the electrical part of it to be by a licensed outfit, if homeowners there or not. I would say the electrical part of it would have to be through a license. burn some stuff up real quick with 240.
Well, one thing I brought forward too was we have some sewer only customers. I probably shouldn't say it too loud. We have some sewer only customers in the district who we can't shut off. There's just no way to do it. Don't tell them, please. But
So we came up with a solution.
we came up with a solution for these 50. We don't want to be in a situation with 50. If we run roughly 5-10% delinquency, you would imagine we have a problem with 5 of the 50 every year. We wanted a way to enforce the fees.
So just to summarize that, we stole Hocking County's plan for that. We require a special type of T where the clean out goes in. And then we can shove a mechanism down in there and shut off your sewage. And you'll figure it out in about 2 flushes.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions, by the way?
No, the biggest thing is the complaints, not being able to hear.
Why is that now? We added more money.
I don't know the answer to that question.
They
I'm
might not
actually
even be
concerned
on.
about that myself.
Maybe they're not even hooked in yet.
No, I don't know. I don't know. But no questions other than that. So if there's, so are you guys good to push that to council and suspension of the rules then, please?
The fees?
Yes.
I'm fine with it, yeah.
Can we just make sure, we didn't talk about this in the meeting, but we did hear to make sure the inspection fees collected at time of permit.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
$100.
Because I think the way we were talking about in the meeting, there was maybe a 2-step collection process. I'd rather all be at the beginning.
Yeah, I understood it all be at the beginning,
Okay.
and
I
the
misunderstood.
only thing would require a second payment is if,
If they have to go back on.
right, they failed the inspection. So, the last, or no, not the last one. I would like to ask council to move 2 line items of monies, actually 3 total. I would like to buy a snow plow that is a rear mounted snow plow. It is a new concept.
What, for the fire truck?
Hey.
There it is.
We definitely could put it on Harry's truck or Scott's truck, because now
Or
we have a
both.
police truck.
Oh.
I actually jokingly made comments about them being able to race them with plows on. However, that's not the case. The plow shift is just shy of 10,000. So there's money in the street levy bill, or what is it? It's the not operating supplies, but
Have you wrote it down, because I didn't.
I got it. So I would like to move 3,000 from line item 230-180-5,000, and that's in the street levy repair and maintenance, and move that into the operating, which is 230-180-40010. And then
Wait, we have 5 numbers in the last one and 4 numbers in the top one. We got 5,000 where we're taking it from, and
oh, sorry, 50,000, my apologies, 50,000,
it's okay.
50,000.
And take the rest from, did you say, the 600 fund earlier?
Yes. So then the other 4,000 would come from 600 68040, and move that to 600 660 Wow.
So that's 7,000 and 3,000.
That should be 4 and 6.
6,000, 4,000.
So where was the 6 again from the
Street levy
street
repair.
levy repair?
No, I thought you said 3.
Well, the 3,000 there put into operating, which had roughly 3,000 left in it as well.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So that would make that 6, and then moving the 4 from the,
Okay, so the 67,690 is the plow, the new plow fund. And then, so, okay, and then we're taking, I gotcha, from street levy repair operations, we're taking roughly 3 each, moving it to the plow fund, and then,
4.
4 from, yeah.
Can you please keep that for tomorrow, so we can send the all of them
Yeah,
in writing
yeah, too easy.
on the computer.
All right.
I thought originally he said 3 funds, and then I thought he was pulling down 2 funds.
All right. More numbers and movement. So, Mr. Fitch would like to move some, monies from different line items, down and split it up into a couple places that makes it more feasible to finish out the year. Excuse me. The first thing he would like to do is in line item 100-100 100-10011. That is an overtime line item for the full-time officers. There's $12,401.36 in there.
I'll plug that one, because I thought for sure we was gonna be out of money.
We would like to move that, 7,000 of that to the salary and wages, which is 100-100-10010.
Salary and wages.
Yes, sir. And then zero out the balance of the 5,401.36 to his operating supplies, which is 100-100-40010.
You keep this up, you're gonna take, Susan's job.
Let's see, this one. Yep, I'm in the part-time wages now. So, part-time.
I can explain it here.
No, it just all goes in operating supplies, right? Except, yeah, I got it. So in his salary and wages of his part-time line items, which is 100-101-10010, part-time salary and wages, he wants to move $4,500 of his remaining $9,457 to his operating.
The 400-10.
Yes, sir. And then the rest of it will stay in there to finish out the year in the part-time. And then the last thing he has is from his part-time overtime line item, which is 100-100-10011. There's $1,898 in there, and we would like to move that to his operating supplies as well. Just a quick overview, what the plan for that is. Gun safe, standardized business cards for the officers, evidence scanner, latex gloves, taser cartridges, police ID cards, the badge refurbishment that now doesn't have to come from the other area that we already asked about, a restraint bench, ammunition, and a couple spare tires for the cruisers, and trash cans. So,
Two quick questions. What was that, last line item, what was that coming from? What fund was that?
that was the part-time overtime.
Part-time overtime, okay. All right, and, second question is, I have little, latex gloves. Is that something we can get through COVID money?
So we can, it's pretty minuscule, and,
I was just thinking about adding it to what we've already kind of have in the works if we can.
we are working on, some COVID, so we got some late information on COVID monies. Luckily, everything's still okay. However, we need to do some documents through council, some legislation and such. And when we do that, we also have the ability to maneuver CARES money through. So it'll kind of be a wash at the end. So could I do that $500? Yes, it's honestly easier just to leave it where it's at. But I can.
It's gonna make more sense in 2 weeks too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to talk cryptic, but we don't have all our ducks in a row yet, and I don't want to, you can't unsay something.
Right.
I don't believe,
Well, yeah, so trust me, so as active as our police department is now, they're going through some gloves.
Taylor, I can't think of anything else I got, sir.
I have a couple things.
Okay.
If I could.
I'm okay, by the way, with those,
Yeah, those are all lateral moves within this department. I don't know if we said that, but
no, we did.
So who's gonna get that to Gary?
we can send it tomorrow.
What he said.
We gotta send a whole slew.
Okay.
We're gonna have a busy Monday, the
Let's
9th.
try and get them done early, gentlemen, so he doesn't have to do them on Thursday or Friday.
Couple things. CARES Act, if I could explain a little bit more on what Scott said. I had a great long conversation with the county auditor. Was it yesterday? It feels like, yesterday feels like 10 years ago, so. We're going to bring forward and approve guidance on CARES Act money. We realize we've already spent some of that, but that's something the county did and would make a lot of sense for us going forward. It adds strength to our argument. The whole goal of the CARES Act from this point on, now that we're in the last quarter of CARES Act, is to make sure that the state doesn't claw any of it back. What I mean by that is when the state audits us next year, they'll decide if our purchases were approved or not, because they don't give you that luxury ahead of time as much as we think. And if they don't approve it, they tell you have to return that money straight out of your bank account. We don't want to do that. So the county had some great advice on passing legislation at council with approved guidance, new forms for department heads and all of us to approve getting Gary Hunter's blessing in writing on each purchase individually, saying that this counts as a CARES Act expenditure. And there was one more thing I'm missing.
So you're talking about the letterhead, the ordinance to do it.
Yeah.
But
essentially, you guys are going to see some of that Monday. Oh, I know what it was. Should we call it judiciary? For
to run that through, get it to the next council meeting.
That'd be great, because,
I was hoping-
would, like some more.
Yeah,
I was
there we go.
hoping-
It needs to go to the judiciary.
I was kind of hoping council would just approve the copy and pasted version that the county had, just with Nelsonville typed into it, because theirs was very good.
Whatever, Dale.
I was hoping.
Y'all had it.
The last thing was Jill Thompson and the county hired as a special project Urig and Associates to run all of their COVID procedures through, CARES Act procedures through, and get the green light from them. And the reason why we're going to follow this track so quickly, so suddenly on this is because Urig is our state auditing firm. So if this state auditing firm approved all this for the county, we're in pretty good shape to get all of ours approved next year. And it's just a no-brainer, slam dunk for us, so.
We're just trying to cover, I mean, there's
Right.
minimal guidance coming out with this, and everybody use your best judgment, but you might have to pay it back. You know, it makes us leery. We also got a lot more guidance and a couple legal opinions from other cities on purchases that we would like to do. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. One of them being a truck for the utility department. So
Very cool.
that's not set in stone or approved yet. We'd have to get that through our own council or attorney, yes. But others have done it with legal opinions.
Well, Gary's pretty up to beat on the whole CARES Act thing.
So the next thing I was just going to move on to was there was a question about the budget, and I had this written down. Scott, if I can speak for him, has been neck deep in budget meetings all week with the department heads. And I believe we're going to have most of that side of the work completed tomorrow. And then Scott and I are going to spend a few days next week doing big picture changes across the funds, things like water loan payments and et cetera, that we need to make sure we don't forget, like the many things that were forgotten this year. And then as I said to Carla earlier today in an email, I'd like to have a finance committee meeting next week to go over a first draft and have as many meetings as we need to try and get it on the agenda November 20.
I mean, it's possible, if we're lucky, the 9th, but worst case, the month.
Good luck with that one, because I'm gonna wanna look at that. It's gonna
Maybe you
take
guys
a
will look at
minute.
the budget and it'll be so
All
perfect,
you
you'll be
have
like,
to do is print it out and sleep on it at night.
Yeah, like, if I get it in advance, sure.
osmosis, it'll just.
I was kinda hoping to get a sneak peek of it tonight, so.
I did ask.
That's why Carla and I emailed, she did ask. It would have,
Disappointment's real, sir.
it would have been a little bit of a mess because I would have had, or Scott would have had to ask all the department heads to give us their current version they're in the middle of working on. And then we'd go over that and then they would finish working it and we'd have like 6 versions running around. And I just, anyway,
Yep, next week is November.
next week.
We-
So we set a goal, Scott and I have getting it on the agenda the second council meeting. So if it takes 3 or 4 or how 17 finance meetings between now and then, I'd say we do it.
We'll make it happen.
It looks really looking really, I'm really excited. It really looks good. And then I said this at council Monday, but I want to say again, it'll be the actual legislation will first be a first quarter budget. We did this in 2018 or 2017, 2018. State law actually says you have to pass a first quarter budget, get the rest of the year approved by the county budget commission, and then pass a full year-long permanent budget, which we apparently rarely have followed, but we plan on following this year. So you'll see you'll see the whole thing, but the legislation will be just for a quarter of the year at first.
Just a heads up now, how I personally would like to be able to view it and go through it is looking at, at least this year versus what we're proposing for next year. I'm not gonna be concerned about the previous years only because they're not accurate, but, so that's, when preparing that.
Yep. To give a quick overview, we plan on presenting it at next week's finance, not just department broken up, but with a full cover sheet of bullet points and explanation of why there's changes, and you won't just have numbers on a page that have no explanation. But we'll also, I have a report I can generate that will give you 18, 19, and 20 side by side very easily of expenditures for each line item.
We need 18, we need basically concerned with 2021, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't.
I can do that too.
Yeah, I mean, because once you start going back so many years, it's like,
It would be different if they were more accurate.
Sure.
Those numbers are really.
there's been
skewed.
fingers in the pot, and
Yeah.
there's been this.
Anyway, that can be on our new laptops, you don't have to print on a paper.
Mm.
Great.
Oh, by the way, remember, we have a color issue, so, let's cut down on the color printing.
Yes, it actually is a real thing.
Huh?
It's a real thing. It's expensive.
I think the first person who brought it up.
Well, yeah, but still.
We
Who does the
have
reports?
too many,
Who does our reports and color?
my managers
Well,
will
I did.
disagree with me all
Very
day.
helpful report.
Taylor will disagree with me all day. We have too many printers and they're not very good. And they cost a lot of money.
I don't disagree with that. I think,
Well,
And
I
so I
don't
say
think
we
the
should only
police
have
department-
I think if there's only one printer and it's in my office, I think that's fine.
I don't think the police department needs to worry about here, print something out.
You actually, with that copier you have, you can set up mailboxes on there.
Oh,
Each
absolutely.
department can print directly to that. Now, it doesn't have to print out until they get there, punch in their code.
Exactly.
And print it out.
Oh, yes, sir.
Because now you're gonna have to come over.
You're speaking like Air
And what
Force
if you're
speak.
not
there?
He loves that.
One
You
printer
can't get it
per
out.
30 people minimum.
I love it.
Here we
Guess
go.
how many people
One,
we have?
one
Where do you want to
printer
put that
per
in,
half
the
person.
police department or the fire department?
What's that?
I think
Where do you want to put that at, police department or fire department?
Neither.
we've got a lot of space in the
All
office.
right.
We have a central location right here to everyone.
Perfect. I agree.
For you.
RHIP. Rank has its privileges.
I'm
Just kidding.
My last thing for the committee, was, Scott's approved this. My office pays things that are routine that nobody really cares about unless it's not paid, like workers' comp. And apparently my office has paid it monthly forever, and it's totally meaningless. You get your yearly bill and then we pay it in 12 installments. I found out this week that they give us a nice big steep discount. We pay it all at once. And our premium's already going down from 60,000 this year, which is actually half of what it used to be, believe it or not. It's going down to 31,000 thanks to CareWorks and low claims. And then they will give us a discount on top of that if I pay it in December. So, that's all great news, right?
Mhm.
The only thing is, I need to ask for 15,000 across like 5 general, street, water, sewer, 4 funds.
Is that, it's 21?
It's for this year, so I need to pay it by Christmas to pay for all of 21, and then we would pay 2022's next
That's
Christmas.
21.
Are we gonna have it?
Have
In
what?
the departments that you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it would just come from police, fire, auditor, city manager's budget. Basically, once you split it up so many ways, it would only add 1,000 or 2. It's gonna be a 31 minus the discount, so around 29 or 30,000. But we have extra, I wanna say it was 19,000 already, because we budgeted more than the premiums were. So I just need to add 15 to those balances, and we'll pay it and be done until next Christmas and get a discount. I know it's a lot of money all at once, but I was like, we gotta save this
But
money.
then we won't be spending it next year. I mean, every month.
Right, we won't spend it till next, you'll still see it on your budget because we'll write a check next December for the
Right.
next year. But I think they gave me a preview of our premiums for 22 and it was down in the 20s. So our premiums keep going down, which is great. Cause it's really just, I mean, I don't wanna use the word waste of money, but it feels like a waste of, I mean, we want coverage, right?
Yeah.
But we see no payback from paying an insurance premium, it's just money we just lose.
So it'll come from police, fire, auditor, street, most of,
City manager, water plant, water crew,
all the,
so it's every department, well, it has a workers' comp line item, it would just be split amongst all of them.
gotcha.
Well, it's all in there.
Is that okay?
Fine with me.
How many copiers do we have?
5.
Oh, goodness, are you kidding me?
He was
Seriously, we have 5 copies?
I already tried to get out of the contract, it's 10 grand just to get out of the stupid contract we're in.
correct.
So we should at least have maybe 4.
1.
Oh, we
Yeah.
need more
If
than
it's
one.
one, it's not allowed to be the copier you have right now, because yours is terrible.
Then we get rid of all these.
You
all
can't
these-
And mine works really well, so I think
Oh,
mine should be the one to keep.
Yeah, so the police department, they print out shit all the time. on the reports and everything.
What's the problem coming over here and getting?
Yeah, they do have. And then so does fire.
So does auditors, and the Dan's gonna forget me, but.
The 28 steps it takes will not kill them.
It's all time.
I'm an efficiency
So,
expert.
hey, so you guys can come over there then.
I'm an efficiency expert, sir. It's not, it's
Are
what
you?
I'm-
That's not efficient to have
Right,
trouble over the building.
I agree.
There you go.
Also, now you want to agree with me since I agree with
Well,
you.
hell yeah.
Yes.
I think that'll be for further discussion.
Yes,
I think there's a much more efficient way to do that.
yes.
I think
Come
Fitch would
on,
love,
we'll do
Fitch would
three
love to
instead of
volunteer to
one
give
and
up
five.
his copy.
That would be an improvement.
Compromise.
He's probably watching, like texting me right now.
It's me. No, one per this building would be more than enough.
No. Do we have any more questions though, by the way? Or any questions?
On Facebook?
No.
I think that's all I have.
You say we're on track, we're not gonna bust we're not gonna be in the negative
In which regard?
this year.
Just generally? Yeah, the budget's looking pretty nice for this year. If you, so after you left to take your daughter to practice, I took all the numbers from the year, or the budget we started the year with, and applied our current expenditures. So in other words, just to see what we started with, what we're really spending. We're still under the 83% goal that we want to be at for each fund for the end of October. So even though we've added to the general fund like 60 grand, the water fund like 40 grand, all these different appropriations this year, we're still below where we should be in expenditures. And revenues are ahead in the general fund. Somebody knock on wood, please, which is awesome. And sewer fund's lagging, but the sewer fund's lagging in revenue down close to 70% instead of 83, but its expenditures are sitting down at 69%. So we're spending slower from the sewer funds, which is the smart thing to do when you're bringing less money in from the sewer funds. We're not great. I mean, the economy is in shambles, but we're not suffering like we could be.
Even worse.
Could be much worse. Just like that sign says, it could be worse.
Next.
I think that's all I have. I'll give you guys a full end of year financial report, by the way, we're coming up on it.
Okay, so I'm sure you'll have the answer to this real quick, and you might have already said, the pipe up here under the river, what is up with that right now? Are we still waiting for the fish stuff to come about, or?
Right, so it's still the permitting and,
So we don't have that budgeted yet, is that correct? I mean, I thought we did, but if the 31st comes along, doesn't it go away?
That's correct.
Okay. So we'll have to budget it for next year if
Right.
we don't get it done.
Kathy, was she waiting on the Corps of
Refund.
Engineers for a new permit?
So insurance, did we ever come up with that, what the guys wanted? Is it gonna be higher, lower?
Well, so our insurance premium went up in July. They only raised them, or, well, I don't know why I'd say lower them, but raised them in July. At this point, so we had an insurance meeting this week. No, last week, I'm sorry. Again, yes, it feels like 10 years since yesterday. Scott and I had with the consortium. It's basically, I mean, up to council. I mean, you only have a few weeks. If you would like to switch insurance companies, you have to notify them 180 days before July 1st, which is December 30th. And you have to have a plan ready in place at that point. And it's also labor negotiation. So we talked about it after that meeting. I don't know how many options the city has, but I'm not the expert in health insurance, so.
So did we ask the employees what they were looking for?
when Taylor explained everything in detail, I haven't heard any complaining since, so.
So, cause I think there was so it's either lower premiums and basically less coverage, or a little bit higher premium, but better coverage.
Correct.
It's the simple part of it.
So yes, there were two plans offered since there was a steep 15% hike. Although I'm told the average national hike was like 19, so we at least came under that, I guess. And the vote was actually unanimous. I know that kind of gives away how everybody voted, but it was unanimous to stick with what's called Plan A. If council decided to dump our current provider, the Ohio Small Groups Pool, our consortium, we would have to notify. Well, actually, didn't they say in the meeting, we have to notify them 270 days before, but the charter of the group also says 180 days in another place. So that's confusing.
At least 6 months.
At least 6 months.
So the employees want to stay with what we got.
I've had zero complaints since Taylor did the breakdown. And
The biggest
explained
problem
everything
we
in
have,
detail.
I'm sorry, yeah. The biggest problem we're having in expenses, because they give us these financial reports for the insurance provider, because it's a consortium, it's self-insured. We're not paying a company, we're pulling our money and then paying out of that pool. So the biggest complaint our provider, our administrator is giving us, especially, but the other groups too, is healthcare choices. So if you have the flu and you're going to the emergency room, should you really be going to the emergency room, or should you go to Nelsonville urgent care first? Because the cost is vastly different. I mean, in some cases, 20 times less to go to the urgent care. And they said they get all this information. So we actually had several charges to the emergency room for sinus infection. I mean, that's like a $5,000 sinus infection for the city. So the biggest thing was when we went over all this health insurance stuff, we were very clear with folks, like, if you have a special problem, you need to go to a specialist. If you are sick, you should go to the urgent care. If you can't breathe, you go to the emergency room, kind of thing. And there was all this process of talking about it seemed to help folks understand, because it's cheaper for the employee too, because they pay co-pays and different things for these things. So it seems I think the feeling is much better in the room. And the financial report for our insurance consortium was very positive. They only had $30,000 in the bank at the July meeting. Would they have $380,000 in the bank now?
I don't remember that.
But they basically said,
I was so confused during that meeting.
well, so they basically said that they obviously would never promise low rate increases or no rate increases, but they said a tenfold increase in their financial standing is pretty good. So we're hopeful that July brings good news in that regard.
So as long as the employers are getting coverage, that they're, it's not up to council. I mean, Yeah, council has to vote, but it's the employees that are the ones who are
Agree.
So the last thing I wanted to bring up tonight, I know we was at a planning meeting to recommend or to support, a tax abatement recently. And so I just wanted to do just a little bit of research into what the town loses on properties that we don't get tax money for. And there are quite a few, so I'm not picking on anybody, but, I just did one just to get some idea, if you want to give, just to give some idea, for a tax exempt for one specific entity. This is just over a 10-year period. This would be property tax that we would have gotten if a lot of these properties were not owned by tax exempt entities. And for a 10-year period, just this one comes to $2,111,000 and $335. So over $2 million over a 10-year period. So we want to at least be careful.
So
What's
just a
your question?
reminder that, city council does not approve tax abatements. Tax
Yeah, I know
abatements
that. We were just asking,
oh, okay.
like,
Yeah.
support it,
Yeah,
is what I
right.
said, yeah.
Yeah.
So just looking into it though, we do want to kind of, to be careful of what's going on in the city, who else buying things, just kind of keep. What's your question, Elizabeth?
I was,
You look
like, we
confused.
can't control who buys things, unfortunately. Huh? The Athens County
Athens.
Commissioners through the Athens County Board of, Economic Development, issues or approves tax abatement. If somebody would request a tax abatement in the city, they would ask for like our endorsement of it,
Right,
but they approve it. And, most of the abatements that they do are, improvement abatements. So, you buy a property, it's worth X amount of money. If you improve it to, let's say you buy it at $100,000, you improve it to $200,000, they give you like a 10% abatement on the improvement value. Yeah.
They're public entities, those are tax exempt.
oh, I know, I said the all the amount of tax buildings that they're buying.
I assume that's-
It's a lot of money. People could be in those buildings.
Absolutely, yeah, I've talked to them, that's, it's not, it has to be pretty major.
Yeah.
To receive it,
Do you have anything?
in a minute.
No, I think we discussed all of it.
You good? All right, we'll adjourn this meeting at 8:25.